Hey, welcome back to my channel. I'm Samantha Salmon, your certified integrative nutrition coach and brain health licensed trainer over here at rawfoodmealplanner.com. And today I want to talk to you about something that's really important when it comes to our overall health, and that's high blood pressure and its impact on stroke risk, specifically in women. If you're interested in hearing more topics like this, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can get notified every time we publish a video here on this channel. And also it lets folks in YouTube land who may be interested in this topic also know more about what we're doing over on this portion of the internet. So, did you know that women have a higher lifetime risk of stroke? You probably know that if you watched my last video. And one of the major risk factors for stroke is hypertension, also known as high blood pressure. To understand this better, I delved into various studies that examine the connection between blood pressure and the risk of stroke in women. The risk of stroke actually increases in a graded manner as blood pressure levels rise above 115/75. So even if your blood pressure is slightly elevated, it's crucial to pay attention and take action. And I know my mom, who you've probably heard of and seen on this channel, on the podcast, the Raw Food Health Empowerment Podcast, this is something that she checks on a regular basis, and she makes sure to check her family members on a regular basis, and it's critical to do so. And this is why we're going to really dive even deeper into why it's so important to know at least where you are. But first, let's explain the blood pressure reading. The top number is called the systolic blood pressure. Typically, we're aiming for like what's considered a healthy blood pressure is that 120/80, right? So that 120, that top number, is the systolic blood pressure. And that's the measure of blood pressure when the heart pumps. The bottom number is the diastolic blood pressure. So that would be like that 80 number, right? And that measures blood pressure when the heart rests in between beats. So here's an eye-opening statistic. A mere 10-point increase in systolic blood pressure, that top number, has been associated with a whopping 38% increase in stroke risk for women. That's a significant jump. And it's important to note that women with mild hypertension actually face a higher stroke risk compared to men. But it's not just about the level of blood pressure. Increased variability in blood pressure also contributes to risk of stroke. So it's not just the numbers on the blood pressure monitor, but it's also how they fluctuate over time that matters. And so I want to kind of put a pin in this to say that if you are having issues with anxiety, maybe that's triggered by toxic relationships, toxic people, a toxic job, definitely look into this, right? Because not only is that stress shortening your lifespan, right, and creating inflammation in the body, but you're also putting yourself at risk for stroke, right? So let's get to the good news, all right? So of course, if you look on the interwebs, the medical system, they love to push the medicine, right? There's meds out there, but you constantly have to be on them. And I personally would rather a lifestyle approach, one, to prevent, and two, to reverse to get to a normal, healthy level. It's also worth mentioning that hormone therapy, particularly combined therapy, increases the risk of stroke, especially for older hypertensive women. And, you know, I was listening to this midlife women's summit recently, and a lot of these women were talking about, oh, why would you stop hormone therapy? Hormone therapy is the best thing, you know, because apparently people are having a better experience with menopause and all this, you know, with this hormone therapy. But it really makes it really makes no sense to be on something like this, because like we had on the summit, the Raw Food Health Empowerment Summit, we had Delilah Fitness on the summit. And I'm pretty sure Dr. Toomey can also talk about this as well, that if you want an easier time with menopause, raw foods is the way, right? So you really don't need hormone therapy. in my non-medical opinion. Okay. But it's good to know that hormone therapy increases the risk of stroke. So that's another reason why, like, if you can use like our normal diet and our natural lifestyle to help keep the body healthy, why add all this stuff, and then put yourself at risk in the end. But anyway, it's worth talking about with your healthcare provider. Another factor to consider is hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, which we've talked about before, which can elevate the risk of stroke. So if you're a woman who has experienced this before, it's especially important to be proactive in managing your blood pressure and your overall health. We can't overlook the fact that age and ethnicity play a role in this as well. They influence the impact of hypertension on stroke risk. Because, mind you, we're talking about hypertension and stroke, both of them impacted by stress. And what causes stress? Systemic racism causes stress. Aggression, in the workplace, on the street, we see a lot of this in media. Recently, I saw a video of a Black woman just minding her business. I think Roland Martin had it on his show. Minding her business, walking, and a guy just pulls her wig off, which had combs, it had clips in it, clipped to her hair, and he just pulled it off. The guy was drunk. Apparently he's an attorney. She posted it on TikTok, and the guy was fired, right? But just to even have to go through it. So many Black women have stories about folks trying to touch their hair, and saying some weird things, saying some disgusting things. And there's been a history of this, right? So we know, and it's not just Black folks too, right? All of us, not all of us, a lot of us have trauma, ancestral trauma that's impacting us now, right? If you study epigenetics, right, the cells, like especially us as women, I actually was in my grandmother's body, right? Right? Because women come into the world with all the eggs that they'll ever have, right? With that, I was in my grandma, I was in my great grandma, it's a very powerful thing. At the same time, the traumas that she's experienced and women before her, in my ancestral line, are or could potentially be impacting me as well, right? The way that I'm triggered and impacted when I see certain things in the media, when I hear and read certain things about what's going on in our communities, it impacts me. It hurts me greatly, right? So this is why we pay particularly attention to the ethnicity piece. There's certain groups that are being disproportionately affected by this, and that is Black communities, brown communities, with Hispanic women. We talked about on the last video how they have a high stroke risk as well. So it's essential for us to evaluate optimal blood pressure thresholds and target specifically for women, specifically for Black women, specifically for Hispanic women. When in my line of work, we talk about cultural competency when it comes to public health professionals and any health professional, community workers. If you're trying to support your community, you need to have some kind of cultural competency in order to help them, right? And so that just means understanding what's going on and meeting people where they are. But I've had conversations with like this one nonprofit locally who, it's run by registered dietitians, and they're out there teaching kids like food demos with Cheerios, which, I don't think I put the video here on YouTube. I put it on my personal Facebook page, but there's a toxic chemical called chloromaquat in all of those General Mills cereals, the Cheerios, the Frosted Flakes, all of this stuff. Plus they have corn syrup in there. Even if you don't buy one of the sweet ones, they all have corn syrup in it. Um, and yogurt and all this kinds of stuff, right? This dairy, which we know asthma is huge in our community, and we don't want to exacerbate the issue with things like dairy, right? However, this organization, when I reached out to them, their response was that we meet people where they are. But the thing is, meeting people where they are doesn't mean sharing trash with them. Like, if you understand that they're eating trash, you don't share trash with them and frame it as a healthy food. In my perspective, that's not meeting people where they are. That's almost like you're saying that it can't be any better. They can't do any better. And from my perspective, I think our entire society could do better, right? And a big part of it is not patronizing people. Like, educate people on what's actually going on with the food and what's in the food. Don't patronize folks. If they know, they can make the choice, they can make the decision. My local grocery store, my Publix, I asked them for organic Brussels sprouts. They said, people don't buy organic unless it's on sale. I asked them, well, if you bring this organic Brussels sprouts in, how much sales do you need in order to keep it on the shelves regularly? And when they found out how much I would be buying just for myself, which, like, for Brussels sprouts, I eat that every week, right? I love Brussels sprouts. They said it would be enough to keep it on the shelf for me, for the one person, right? So just imagine if other people were asking for it, but why would they ask for organic Brussels sprouts if they have not made the connection as to why it's worth that extra dollar, extra 50 cents or whatever, right? If people don't understand why that extra pricing is there, why they should pay, they're not going to pay, right? I mean, it's just it's like common sense, right? And so I don't patronize folks, right? The only reason I eat the way I eat is because I learned, I was educated by people who thought it was important to get the message out. And then I made the decision for myself, at least let people know, right? We call this in the medical system informed consent. People cannot make informed decisions if they are not informed, right? So, this whole thing about meeting people where they are, just remember, do not patronize people, right? We have people here in Florida that do not look like me, okay? Saying to people who don't look like me that, Black people don't want healthy food, because, like, for example, my colleague, Maria Solanke, she was on the podcast, and this is something she was campaigning for school board, and this was actually coming up with folks that she was talking to, where people were saying to her, like, why are you campaigning on healthy food in St. Pete? Black people don't care about that, And I'm telling you, when I said my blood boiled, my blood really boiled, that someone would literally say this to someone's face. It's interesting what people say behind our backs, because I couldn't imagine someone saying that to my face, Anyway, I think it's essential for us to evaluate all optimal blood pressure thresholds and targets, specifically for us in our groups, because even the number that we have, I'm wondering if it could or should be a little bit different, just based off of what's going on for us, right? That's a conversation that researchers are having right now. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below, in the comment section below, because, when we look at what's normal, right, which is why I like to kind of lean in on Dr. Greger from Nutrition Facts, his information a little bit more, because you have the medical system where they have, like, okay, this is a normal blood pressure range, 120/80. But I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the exact number right now, but in Dr. Greger's How Not to Die book, I feel like he mentioned the blood pressure could be even lower than that. Of course, you don't want your blood pressure to be too low, but a lot of these numbers sometimes are coming from like an average or aggregate of groups of people, and not necessarily factoring in, well, what doesn't like the person who is following an ideal diet, an ideal lifestyle, what does that blood pressure look like, right? Because maybe we're holding people to this bar when we could be holding people to a higher standard, or, like a better standard. Let's reach for this, right? So it's just something to think about, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. And like I said, we need strategies that are tailored to our unique needs. We know what to do in order to keep blood pressure normal, and reduce our stroke risk. So what exactly are some of the issues we need to be addressing? And I know, like, for me, from my perspective, I know there's a lot of things that need to be addressed locally, individually, right? There are things that we can individually do. There's also some societal things that need to happen. Sometimes, and then a lot of it too is we're talking about women in particular, and stress, blood pressure, the heart rate, right? How fast the heart is beating and things like this, right? How fast the blood is pumping. Having healthy boundaries and healthy relationships, saying no with confidence, and just standing in that position and not feeling emotional disturbances from this. These are all trainings that I think are really vital and critical for women of all races, for different reasons too, right? Because there's certain groups of women don't have issues with certain things, while other groups of women have issues. But ultimately, the common theme with all of the women is boundaries, right? It just kind of manifests and looks differently depending on the group. But boundaries, saying no, putting ourselves first, like when I say self-care, I feel like it's not concrete enough sometimes for people to really understand what I'm talking about. Like, self-care means, yes, we care about our families, we care about society, but we need to turn the care to us. That means looking at all our areas of life on what needs to be addressed, including our nutrition, our exercise, our stress, our income, our career, our coworkers, our boss, our customers, the place we live. Maybe where you live is not a healthy place to live. One of the things that kind of clicked in my mind is like, America is not the only place to be. Like, there are other places where I could be, where I could live and have a great quality of life without stressing myself out. You know what I'm saying? My parents are immigrants. Most of my family, right? Immigrants. I can also be an immigrant, right? So America's not it. America doesn't have to be it. If it's causing stress, it doesn't have to be it, right? Sometimes it's just a little tweak in that, because there are people who are eating clean, but that stress part is really hurting them, right? They can't get their blood pressure under control for some reason because of all sorts of things, family issues, all sorts of things. So anyway, let's prioritize, right? All of us women, we need to prioritize our brain health, take charge of our overall well-being, and regularly monitor our blood pressure, manage it effectively, keep it healthy, stay committed to a healthy lifestyle, and support a healthy body and a healthy society. I know we are all working towards a healthy society, but I think a lot of us just need to really focus inwards on ourselves. Remember, knowledge is power, and together we can make a real difference in our own lives and in the lives of those around us. So take action now. If you need support on this journey, why don't you hop on a coaching call with me? Schedule 20 minutes and we can go through what your challenges are, what the obstacles are, and see how we can get you started on this healthy lifestyle path. Until next time, stay empowered and be well.